Well, listen, welcome everybody. We really appreciate everyone who's joining us tonight for Peers meeting. We've got people coming in as I'm speaking. But what I want to let folks know, for those of you who don't know PEER, I know most of you do, but PEER is a progressive multi-issue grassroots organization committed to advocating for social, racial, environmental, and economic justice for all through electoral politics and activist issue-oriented engagements. My name is Catherine Soka. I'm a co-chair of PEER. PEER is a chapter of NYPAN, New York Progressive Action Network, a statewide organization with over 30 chapters and many affiliates throughout New York. PEER is also affiliated with Indivisible and Our Revolution. Our primary focus over the last 5 years that we've been together has been healthcare, immigration and racial justice, environmental issues, and election reform. If anybody out there has yet to join PEER for this year, we would welcome you to send your dues to Tina Jakobowicz. Tina is our treasurer. Thank you for doing that, Tina. And I'm going to drop in the chat how you can mail your dues to her, or you can join online because we now actually have a way for you to do that easily through ActBlue. So for those of you who haven't joined for this year, we would appreciate if you would. Membership's privilege includes voting on all proposals that we have at PEER. So let's face it, we're 2 weeks away from the moment that we have been waiting for over 4 years. So I just want to encourage everybody to have heart, stay focused. We have 4 terrific progressive candidates that we're going to be hearing from tonight. They all need our support. I want to challenge everybody on this call to contribute to each of their campaigns, even if it's only a few dollars. It will really mean a lot. We want to share the news about them, and we also want to get those who have the ability to help them out by either texting or calling from them. You'll hear about that later. So here's a summary of our format. We're going to have some announcements from different PEER members. Then we're going to pivot to have each of the candidates give an overview of their issues, their districts, and why it's important to have them in Albany representing Long Island come January. We'll have a short moderated Q&A between them, and then we will have questions and answers. We'll ask you to use the raised hand icon at that moment, and Julie Sheehan will call on you. So our first announcements are going to be from Catherine Levy, who's on PEER's core and is also on the executive board of NYPAN, to talk about Pennsylvania, how to protect the vote there. So Catherine, please.
I don't think I have to tell all of you that Pennsylvania is a critical state, and I probably don't have to tell you that the Republicans are doing everything possible to suppress the vote. They have a very complicated absentee ballot process, and I think it's going to be closer than we would all wish. They have a terrific election protection team there, the Biden campaign, and they're very much in need of people to do 3 things at the moment. They need poll observers for election day. That's not poll watchers. These are people who will be outside the polls for the lines that are expected to be very long, and they will be helping people with information. They'll be helping to protect them if necessary and keep them from being intimidated, because unfortunately that's part of what we have to deal with at the moment. And they will also be taking notes about what happens, because there's going to be a narrative drama going on after the election about what happened in Pennsylvania. So they are encouraging people from out of state who feel they can to go there for election day. They have training. Catherine is going to drop the link to that in the chat. And if you have any questions about it, I would be happy to answer your questions. There are a group of people from Eastern Long Island who are actually going to go down on November 2nd and spend all of election day there. They also need, if you don't want to actually go to Pennsylvania, they need people on the phones to recruit poll observers. I mean, they need literally thousands of poll observers all over Pennsylvania. They only have a 13-person staff, and so they need as many recruits as they can get. And I got another desperate email from them today about how much they need recruits for this. And then there's probably going to be 2 weeks of counting of the absentee ballots after Election Day in Pennsylvania, unfortunately. And there are going to be shenanigans, almost certainly. So they need people to observe the canvassing. This is more risky. It's going to be inside. It's going to be for many hours. So you have to feel that you're capable of doing it, but they're also signing up people for that. And Catherine will drop the link in the chat about that as well. And again, I'm happy to, at another time, to answer any questions you have about this.
Okay, I have dropped all those links into the chat, and I would encourage people to just block copy that and toss them onto your desktop so that you have the information and you can access it later. We will also put that on Peer's Facebook page so that you can go there to get the information too after the meeting is over. Next up, we want to have Tina Jakobowitz, who's also, in addition to being Peer's treasurer, she's in charge of postcards for Goroff. And Tina, you want to just take a moment to talk about that? And I'm going to put your email in the chat so people can email you if they want to get engaged.
Catherine, don't put my email in. They are not asking us to send postcards anymore for Nancy Goroff.
Okay, all right. Well, I already put your email in there, so just ignore that, everybody.
Write to me anyway, but I don't have names anymore. They took off all the names.
Okay, that's great. That means I guess they feel like they have done what they need to do.
Well, they were worried that if people were doing them, they'd mail them, and people would get the postcards after the election.
Gotcha.
And they didn't want that.
Okay, perfect. All right. So then Amy, we'll pivot to Amy, who may have some information about the Goroff campaign to share with us.
So between working to elect our state legislators and flipping other states, we can't forget about Zeldin. So Goroff campaign has a big effort this weekend, a weekend of action. The link will be in the chat, and also the Get Out the Vote the following weekend. So they're easy, they're slot shifts you can sign up for. There'll be a training before each shift. And if you want to do phone banking on any other day, you can email Christian Smith, who's one of the organizers, who will get back to you and can set that up. So they need phone banking. And I don't know, also you might want to watch Nancy's debate from last night. It's on SEA-TV on YouTube. And it was pretty strong, and Zeldin looks nervous to me, worried. Oh, I forgot. And the race is practically tied. The latest poll was 49 for Zeldin, 48 for Goroff, 2% undecided, a 5-point margin of error. So this could be the time we get them. So every phone call is going to make a difference.
Great. Thank you, Amy. That is so true. We need to get the turnout for Nancy, because we just really need to get rid of Lee Zeldin and give him his retirement papers. I'm going to drop in the chat also a few more details. The first one I want to mention is, when you vote, whether it's early, whether it's absentee, or whether it's on election day, we want to encourage you to vote on the Working Family Party's line. They really need our vote on that line in order to be able to maintain a very strong presence in New York electoral politics. So when possible, please vote on the Working Family Party's line. They need 250,000 votes to be able to continue to be viable there. So in addition to that, there's a link for early voting that's going to be dropped into the chat. Our local locations are Stony Brook University Southampton campus and in East Hampton Windmill Village. And then phone banks locally for the presidential election. I'm going to drop information about that if anybody wants to engage with that. Each of the East and Southampton Democrats have phone banking at least one evening a week.
Catherine, can you drop in the link too for phone banking into Pennsylvania? I sent you that link as well.
I dropped all of the links that you sent to me in the chat. The Biden campaign, Get Out the Vote, if you go back, but I can do that again, because let's include them all sort of at the same time. or
And
the,
also the Working Families Party is asking people who can do it. I know that people are being asked to volunteer to do a lot of things. They're asking people to stand outside of polling places and request that people vote on the Working Families Party line. I mean, they're in danger of losing their ballot line. And that's going to be a big blow to progressives in this state. So, you know, let's try to do what we can to keep that ballot line for them.
absolutely. So what we now want to get to is the main event, which is to hear from our 4 progressive Long Island candidates. We really need to send them to Albany. We are, you know, the last session was historic in terms of how much progressive legislation we were able to pass. We fell short. We didn't get the New York Health Act in. We want to make sure that that happens next year. And we have 4 candidates who are not only supportive, but who are going to be actively advocating for it. So we're going to begin with the candidate for the New York Senate, who has some experience in the Assembly herself, Christine Pellegrino. Please, would you introduce yourself? And you have 4 to 5 minutes to let us know who you are and how we can help you win.
Thank you so much. Thank you to the Peer NIPAN family. I want to say hello to everybody. So many familiar faces, like my brothers and sisters in the progressive movement. In case you don't know who I am, Christine Pellegrino. I'm a mom, I'm a teacher. I am not a politician. I was, however, elected in 2017 in a special election right after the current president, the current occupant of the White House, with tremendous support from this organization and so many, you know, incredible individuals who got on the phones, to the doors, and did the tremendous work of getting our message out to voters that a working class individual like me could get off the sidelines and really make a difference when bringing a message of support for public schools, healthcare, the environment, you know, suffering from addiction, and how that representation really matters in our New York State government. And we flipped that district by 40 points. We got to serve in Albany and really do some amazing work. The majority matters. This is, let's not kid ourselves, it is absolutely critical when you have a majority member. That means that you get to deliver the kind of historic funding that I was able to when I was a member, and put money right into my schools, deliver money for my veterans facilities, renovate my library, you know, the list goes on and on. Clean up toxic sites right on the grounds of the school that my, you know, children go to. Really envision, you know, a New York that works for all of us. And now I'm running for New York State Senate because the work is not over. There's so much left to do. And the Senate is really where the work really happens. It is the room where it happens. And I need your help now more than ever. We have a healthcare decision coming right upon the heels of this election, which could rip our healthcare away from us. And that would be a travesty for millions of Americans. But we have the ability in New York to pass the New York Health Act. And we know that there is a wall between us and that New York Health Act, but there is a path. And the path to that New York Health Act is the suburban progressive. There is one lone suburban progressive out here on Long Island that's running on healthcare, on a healthcare system that works for all of us, particularly in a pandemic. What is more necessary right now for people of our district than to have access to that healthcare that makes sense economically, it makes sense morally, it makes sense for us to fight for that more than ever before. That critical vote in the New York State Senate is more important than ever before. I've been campaigning on it. It's on my literature. It's on our website. It couldn't be more forthright of an intention of ours to be the issue that we want to champion. And we know that there are some organizations out there that are interested in thwarting that effort. It's difficult work. It's hard. Let's not kid ourselves about that either. So
I'm sorry, Christine, if I could interject, if you could tell us a little bit about where your district is,
Sure.
about your competitor and how
Sure.
we can help you with that.
Sure. So my district is, the towns of Babylon and Islip that go from about Wyandanch across to about Ronkonkoma and all along the South Shore, including Fire Island, at the barrier beaches. It is a district that has more Democrats than Republicans, which is great for us. It has a voter enrollment advantage of about 10,000, which we couldn't believe didn't flip in 2018. It was one of the third closest races, which gives us a great opportunity at this point in time. It is a very sleepy, quiet under the radar race right now, which gives us an incredible opportunity to do some phone calls and make sure that our low turnout voters are getting to the polls. Our opponent is a corrupt lifetime politician who has voted against the Women's Reproductive Health Act and flip-flops on issues. He voted on the SAFE Act and then called it his worst, his worst regret. He also voted on a Senate bill that was a complete bipartisan effort to introduce curriculum into schools to make sure that kids got instruction on symbols of hate and anti-Semitism. And he was the lone no vote on this bill. At this point in time, when we are more divided than ever before, our leaders and our kids need to make sure that we have good opportunities to create unified government and that we can move forward in progress. It's time for him to go. It's time for him to get out of the pocket of the real estate industry, giving away tax breaks to billionaires and collecting campaign contributions for himself. This is not a district that deserves to be carried by a minority member, and we can beat him, and we look forward to victory in November.
Great. Thank you, Christine. Appreciate that. I see that Eileen Duffy has dropped into the chat that there's a link to donate to Christine's campaign. She's got the Let's Visit Lee Zeldin has this campaign going to try to get a lot of funds going to Christine's way. Also, Paul has a link in there about how you can help with phone banking and in other ways. So I hope that folks out there will do that. We know you're going to have to top off about 7:15, but we hope maybe you'll be able to hang in for a few questions and answers before that time. So right now we want to shift over to the Assembly, really super important. And Joe Sackman is going to be our first Assembly candidate to speak. Joe, please take it away.
Thank you, Catherine. Again, my name is Joe Sackman. I'm running for State Assembly in District 15. That's in Nassau County, not too far from you. My district runs from Bayville, the North Shore, and Oyster Bay down through, every little town you can think of, to East Meadow, Salisbury, Westbury, Hicksville, Bethpage, Farmingdale, Syosset, Jericho, Locust Valley, and like I said, other slivers of other towns. It's a very gerrymandered district, and I like to call it Picasso Age 3 with crayon, because that's what it looks like. So the district is pretty diverse. It's gotten diverse over the last 30 years. It's 70% white, but it's about 12 to 13% Asian, South Asian, 13% Latinx, and 2% Black, and 1% other. And the district has changed. The needs of the district have changed, but our representation hasn't. Our representation is currently, for the last 10 years, Michael Montesano. He's an avid Trump supporter. During the pandemic, he loved to tweet about the conspiracies, that COVID was a conspiracy by the Democrats to get rid of Trump. He downplayed the need for masks and other things. And while he was doing all that, causing division and misinformation about COVID-19, I was out there getting PPE for nurses and healthcare staff, visiting families, getting them food, doing mutual aid. So when there was a when there is a pandemic, right? We're still in it. But when we're at the height of it, we've got one person who is tweeting, and we've got another person who is taking action and helping the community. And that's me. So taking action. So big issues. And just to lead off with the pandemic, yeah, it's public health. So public health is the number one issue that we face. We're living through a pandemic, the recovery of that, how we will deal with that now and going into the next few years, because to tell the truth, a vaccine is not around the corner. And if they had anything, it's going to take a long time for it to get through all of New York to get everyone vaccinated. We have millions of people that live in New York, and so it's not going to be something that we're going to have an answer for, a solution for overnight. So we need someone who takes this seriously. I've worked in veterinary medicine for the last 11 years. I'm a researcher. I understand science. I know its value, and that's how we have to make decisions during a time like this. As public health is the number one issue, there are many other things that fall under that. Our water quality. Long Island has been used as a dumping ground for decades. One of the biggest perpetrators of that have been Grumman and the Navy. So in my district, in Bethpage, we have the Grumman Plume, which is a toxic lake that's 2 miles wide, 4 miles long, and 900 feet deep, and it's growing. And while New York State, thankfully, when the Senate flipped, there was some action taken and a remediation plan was developed by the DEC, but it's a plan that's going to take 100 years. So I think 100 years is way too long for a solution. And we'll have to do better. So I want to do better, because I can't see the 250,000 families that this affects have this continue. For that to leave it to their children and grandchildren is ridiculous. And to put pressure on Grumman to pay. They're the ones who created the mess. They're the ones that polluted our water. They should pay. And so should any polluter that has basically poisoned our water. So I will fight to make that happen. And the New York Health Act. I know that's the big ticket item here, right? So the New York Health Act. Well, as a member of Long Island Activists, and still, as I was a steering committee member, a board of directors, sat on the board of directors at NIPAN for a little while. I know how important that the New York Health Act is, and you can peer that along with Rob. Even while I'm campaigning, I'm strategizing with grassroots organizations to get the New York Health Act passed. And that's something I will continue to do, because I'm not going up to Albany as a politician. I'm going up to Albany as an activist and an organizer. Someone who's going to take that experience and put it to work in Albany. So you're going to have an ally, 100%. And I'm going to be there to work with the grassroots, to work with the orgs, to work with the legislators of like mind, like Rivera and Gottfried, and push this through, because we're going to need this. This is how our country is going to move forward. New York is going to be the leader in providing healthcare through the single-payer healthcare system, and it'll be the model that the Medicare for All system that we want nationally can follow.
Great. Joe, thank you so much. Really appreciate that succinct summary of your action items, and we look forward for you to be in Albany next January. Let's now hear from Steve Polgar about his district and about his campaign. Steve, you're on.
Hi, Catherine. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. It really means a lot to be here. So my name is Steve Polgar. I am running for New York State Assembly in District 3, which is the center of Brookhaven. It goes from a little bit of Quorum, all of Medford, down south all the way to East Patchogue, then to Mastic Beach, and then up to Yaphank and Middle Ridge and Middle Island. So I have dedicated my life to community service. I started at a young age. At age 14 in 1997, I created my high school's first website. At age 19, I founded an all-volunteer charity that gave money to educational programs, including Head Start and public schools, and also to teachers wanting to do projects, anything that made learning fun and interactive for students. I continued that public service with my work with Students for Free Enterprise. For my volunteer service, I received the President's Volunteer Service Award from George W. Bush. And after college, I went into finance and insurance as a career, but I continued to volunteer at any time I could. I volunteered for American Cancer Society, the Red Cross, Susan G. Komen, and many others. In 2017, I received the President's Lifetime Achievement Award from Barack Obama for my volunteer service work. And so the reason I'm running is because I want to bring that experience, the experience of delivering for my community, bringing the resources to people that need them. And I think that's something that our leaders lack right here in District 3. So the current person, he's only been in there for one term. He is an avid Trump supporter. He does not go after independents. He does not reach out. And so we have been reaching out to independents. We've been reaching out to everyone. Just recently, we sent out 32,000 postcards. So we are hitting a lot of people. We've sent out thousands of postcards even before that, handwritten notes. We have a lot of phone calls. We are working with a lot of other campaigns, and that's been part of my strategy, to work with a lot of other people. And because if I get elected, I'm going to have to work with a lot of other people to get things passed. If I live on an island, I'm not going to get anything passed. And I'm looking to go to Albany to get things done. And we have a really great team. Karen Pierce is campaign manager, Farzine, deputy campaign manager. They are not sleeping. They do so much work. So we have a really great team, and we are doing contactless lit drops. We're doing a little bit of everything, where other campaigns are kind of, only doing phone calls and things like that. So for my key issues are education, because of my background, the environment. With Brookhaven, we have a huge problem with the landfill, and I need to be a voice for the people that are typically unheard. So I want to be that voice, and it's working. In the last debate for Nancy and Zeldin, even for a federal race, they were asked about the Brookhaven Asheville. So we think that we're doing a good job getting recognition for this issue. And so we not only want to pass, obviously, good laws that help people in need, but we want to be a leader in the community and bring light to issues that maybe, don't get heard most of the time. We're fighting, we want to fight to improve healthcare, obviously, for all New Yorkers. There's obviously a lot of issues. Another one of our key issues is small businesses. Long Island has a long history of having great small businesses that drive the economy here. We want to make sure that those businesses stay open. A lot of them are family businesses that have been open for generations. And so we want to make sure that those businesses not only survive, but then thrive after the pandemic is over or is lessened. The election's going great. We look at our independent numbers, which are really, really positive because they've never been talked to. And we are contacting a lot of people. We have a lot of great volunteers. So I am very, very hopeful for this election. We believe that we're going to win. And so the way Pierre can help, we're looking for volunteers. We're looking for, obviously, donations. Anything that helps in any way. If you contact myself, Farzine, or Karen, we can find a way that you can help. So again, thank you for having me here.
Great, thank you, Steve. And we can drop those contacts into the chat. You know, it's very impressive to hear from each of you the efforts that you're doing in all aspects of need all across Long Island. First of all, just to hear about the diversity of the geography is so essential for us to recognize what happens west of where we are isolated on the South Fork. So you're bringing that into the conversation is really critical for educating everybody on the call. And I have to say, as a small business owner, thank you for mentioning that you want to work and help small businesses. So our last assembly candidate is Dylan Rice. So Dylan, please, if you could step forward and talk about your campaign and how we can help you.
Of course. Thank you for hosting this. It's good to see my colleagues who are also running for office right now. It's been a long journey. I announced in February, and a month later, the entire world had changed, and we're here now. And it's been an exciting time. This is my first time running for office. I'm running in District 8, which is the town of Smithtown and surrounding neighborhoods, including Hauppauge, Wisconsin, St. James, and Kings Park. I'm running an openly progressive campaign in a pretty conservative district. For those who don't know, the assembly person that represents my district right now is one of the most conservative members of the assembly. His voting record is atrocious, and I highly encourage you to check out a website I spent far too much time on, putting his voting record together, and it is a trip. And so I think the reason I decided, first and foremost, is because I feel that Long Island, due to the conservatives who are in power here, is getting left behind. And they're the ones who are basically putting roadblock after roadblock after roadblock in front of common sense progress and fiscal responsibility. They love to claim fiscal responsibility, but even now they're defending the wealthiest of us in New York State and not helping the middle class and working people get to the spot where they need to be, where they can actually fuel and explode the economy, especially in the wake of COVID and the damage it's done. So my policies and everything I've been focusing on has been a very unilateral approach from the middle class and working class, empowering the middle class and working class to help fix the problems in New York State, because that's the way it's going to get done. I talked to environmental advocacy groups, and I was joking. I'm like, climate change and environmental policies, that existential threat that's behind us, that's coming closer and closer and closer. And the only reason it's not getting addressed is issues like the voting rights issues, whether it be the money's influence in politics, corruption inherently within it, the inability to get the folks who need to vote out to vote. Everything is kind of set up against common sense change and progress. And I've been running a campaign that's been highlighting a lot of these issues, and it's received a lot of great support from a district I think a lot of people kind of just threw out. Smithtown has always been very conservative. I'm pretty sure half the folks in the town council still think Dwight Eisenhower is the president, and we're trying to really bring it back up to speed. And it's been a trip, and I've been really enjoying it. I've been talking to so many folks in my community, and again, the reception's been amazing. I was nervous, especially because it's my first time running, that I would be dismissed right off the bat. But I've been getting I've had great success with these issues, great success talking to folks, and again, the support that I've been getting on my end has just really emboldened me and made me go, there's a reason I'm running, and this is exactly it, to make sure that these issues get addressed. I know at the beginning we mentioned issues like environmental change, environmental policy, racial justice, and societal issues like that. To me, they're all interconnected. Every single one of them, in a step in the right direction, pushes everything forward. Because climate change, for instance, is going to hurt impoverished and left behind communities the most. They're the ones that are going to be hurt the most by climate change and environmental issues. The issues like COVID are disproportionately affecting communities of color, and they're really going to hurt them much more so than communities that were already established and built and able to succeed in the current layout of New York State. And I'm hoping to really address these issues to make it a more even playing field. And the way we do that is by making the ultra wealthy and the folks who build the tax code by lobbying the politicians that they want to shape the tax code to benefit them and them only, and making sure that the burden of the tax code and the expenses of New York State are taken away from middle class and working class families and put on the ultra wealthy and have them pay their fair share. Not punishing them, having them pay their fair share that they've avoided for so long. And my opponent has labeled me, we had a debate which went very well. I highly encourage anyone who's interested to knock out an hour to watch it. For my first time, I think I did pretty good. had him on the what's the boxing term? I'm missing the boxing term. On the rope for the most of it. And I think we did well, really highlighting these issues. He tried to label me as a socialist, far left, radical. He put me in the same category as AOC, which I took as a compliment. I think she's a little bit more accomplished than I am at this point, but I appreciate that, Mr. Fitzpatrick. And I think we're just really good at illustrating a lot of these issues in a way that's palatable and easy to understand for folks who have really been told, and this is true, this is where we're at with polarization, it's an us versus them. It's a red versus blue. Everybody has been told to work against their own interests because it was built that way. It was meant to be that way, where folks my age feel apathetic about voting because they were told both parties are the same. Nothing matters. Nothing's going to change. And I feel like my campaign has done a great job illustrating that that's not true. That's insanity. And the only way any of this gets changed is when we all vote, when we all participate, when we all inform each other and really get involved with direct action. That's going to change the course of our country and the course of our state and the course of my district and community. And it's been amazing. I'm incredibly grateful. Part of me is sad that it's coming to the end. The other part is like, oh man, I just want to know what's going to happen. Just get it over with. But again, I'm extremely proud to be running. I'm unbelievably proud to be counted amongst the folks that are here. You told me a few years ago I'd be on the same ballot as Joe Biden. I'd laugh you out of the room, but that's where we're at. So thank you for hosting me, and thanks for letting us speak.
Great. Thank you, Dylan. And, thank you all. It's really impressive to see the quality of candidates that progressives have put forward this year. And, I just think back to 4 years ago when we were all, working very hard on progressive issues on the Bernie Sanders campaign. And you can see that he and other progressives have really encouraged people to step forward and to run, from Christina who first won in the special assembly election. So again, very impressed with your knowledge of your districts, your backgrounds, and your interest in really working for issues of importance to regular folks here on Long Island. What we'd like to do now is just to have a short moderated sort of a back and forth with the candidates on a specific question. So once you are in office, as a progressive, you are going to come under enormous pressure to modify your positions on key issues. Have you thought about that? And how will you respond to that pressure? So, Christine, you want to jump in and take that first?
Yeah, I'm happy to take it, Catherine, and then I probably have to unfortunately jump off. Such a good conversation. It's always good to be in the company of greatness. I want to thank thank all the fellow candidates for all the time that you have put in. You have done a great service to your community and to this movement, and I'm so proud of all of you. It is a tremendous pressure. That is no doubt that it lies ahead. And there are a few ways. One thing that we have on our side is that we are unbought and unbossed, that we have the power of the grassroots, and that we know that we stand firm in our values and what we believe in. And I've always proved that by how I vote, and how even going back to my vote on the DREAM Act, which was I was counseled very, very significantly by the leadership to vote no on that because it was not going to be well received. And I will tell you very significantly that that is a pressure that exists, and you have to know how to message it appropriately, and you have to know how to push back, and you have to know where your heart is and where your values are, and you have to know what you stand for. And if you're willing to sort of go back on your word and flip-flop on the issues, you are going to be someone that no one can trust. And that is not someone that I'm willing to become, or be willing to project to my district. That's who my opponent is. I'm a teacher, I'm a mom, I'm not a politician, you have to know who your friends are, and there are, you go up to Albany, it's a Shark Tank. You're not going up there to make friends, that's for sure. But, when I say friends, it's like, more like who you can trust to begin to find your way on the issues. But that's not an easy task either. So finding a coalition of trusted individuals and a mentor who will guide you appropriately is really significantly important. But having the independence of not is really super important. So.
Thank you. Those are all key issues. I think you need to hop off now. Is that correct? Or can you stay around, Christine?
Yeah, I have like another minute. So.
Well, let's pivot. I mean, because I want to hear from the assembly candidates about that. Who would like to speak first? Steve, Joe?
I'll go next. So.
Okay, Joe.
Well, I think one of the things that we've seen this year is that there are a lot of progressives that have been elected to at least to the assembly that we still have some hopes for the Senate with Christine and Patrick Nelson up in the North Country there. But I think we're going to see a strong progressive caucus that's going to be up in Albany. So that's going to be helpful. Along with that, and Christine mentioned it, we're not bought. Like I am independent of pretty much of much of the influence that's out here in Nassau County. I would have been either way. I was going to run as an independent or primary, whoever, when I decided to run. And I'm not bought by like big corporations or real estate money, etc. And the other thing I think we can count on, well, two other things, is each other. So Dylan wins, Steve wins in the assembly, Christine, etc. We can lean on each other and conference with each other to make those decisions and have the support mechanism that would be there. And then there's the grassroots. There's you, right? So when we need the messaging for something that needs to be, that we need to defend, why are we voting this way? Because it's the right thing to do. Well, we need the grassroots to step up and help with that messaging, to say this is, to educate and communicate with our constituents. We can do it with our office, but also, if we're let's talk about the New York Health Act. Let's say that's what's on the table. Well, the grassroots is going to be an important player there, and we're going to need that education to come from the, from the grassroots, and then in additionally, like I just said, from our office. Why am I going to vote for this? Why is it important? How is it going to help you? So being able to have that narrative, control that narrative, I think will go a long way in saying, well, you put pressure on me to vote this way, but my constituents wants this. I spoke with them. They know why I want to vote this way, and they agree. So I think that's one of the ways we can stay true to our values.
Good, thank you, Joe. Wouldn't it be great if all of you are in Albany to have like a Long Island 6 that would be progressive? I know Fred Thiel would be part of that, and perhaps there's one or two others. But let's hear from Steve or Dylan regarding that. Steve?
All right. Yeah, thank you for the question. I was talking to Elmer actually about this from Indivisible too. And the way I guess I would think of it is that even by running, we are challenged every day by what do you really believe in? What are your core values? And what are you willing to compromise on or maybe not say as much? So it's definitely a great exercise in knowing yourself, knowing your own values. But I mean, what I can say is that I will always do what's best for the people in 83 and New York. I'm going to be fighting for them. My campaign has outraised my opponent 2-to-1 in individual donations. So we are fundraising by the grassroots. We don't have special interests that are giving us thousands of dollars. So we're funded by the people. So I'm going to always do what I think is best. What I would say, maybe that's slightly different, that's different than everyone else, is that progress doesn't come overnight. The things that we see now, it would be impossible to pass them 150 years ago, 100 years ago. Sometimes progress is slower than we would like. But I'm going to always stay true to what I believe, let people know what I think and what I believe. But I mean, if the option is get nothing or get an improvement, I'm going to do what's best for the people of my district in New York.
Good, great. Thank you, Dylan.
And following what Steve said, we have this responsibility where we're really the ones that got to be putting the pressure on the folks that are in there right now, the establishment, and making sure that they're starting to work for working people in the middle class. We're the ones that are really trying to address the inherent issues that have blocked out people, that have put people in boxes, that don't allow them to get involved in this process. And it's built that way. It has been built that way, and it continues to be perpetuated that way. Campaign finance is the direct way we're involved with it. And like everyone else, I'm running a grassroots campaign. And I've joked, if I get elected, I really hope lobbyists come to my office and spend as much time as they can there as possible, so they're not talking to other candidates. Because at the end of the time, I'm just going to throw them out. They're gone. I don't want anything to do with them. I'm there representing my district, the constituents, and the voters. They're my boss. I'm not the politician who thinks I'm there to go as a savior. No, I was employed by the folks in my district to go fight for them in Albany. I'm going to do that. I don't care how much money they throw at me, how much money they throw at anything. I'm there to fight for the issues we went to go there for in the first place. And there's no balking from that. There's really no way to get away from that and not be, honestly, just a complete hypocrite. We have to work with the Democrats that have been there for a long time, the ones who have seen this incremental progress happen, and remind them that yes, it's been incremental. Yes, it's been a long fight, but that momentum is growing. That momentum is there. We have this wave of enthusiasm that we need to capture. We need to make sure folks my age aren't lost in the process while everything's going on, because there is a lot of folks who just want to drop out and not tune in. They want to make sure that they feel like it's all for nothing. They feel apathetic. If we can actually get the folks who believe in this stuff engaged in the process, we will win every single one of these issues, because they are accepted by the majority of Americans. They are believed by the majority of Americans, and they want to see it happen, but they feel that they can't get it done with the way things are built right now. We need to show them that when you get folks like us into office, these things can happen. We just need their support, and we need to have them engaged in the process to actually get it done. So we really do need to be a brick wall and make sure that we're pushing these things forward and not compromising our core values, because at the end of the day, people's lives are at stake, people's livelihoods are at stake, healthcare is at stake, all of this stuff that is tangible, real stuff that's in danger. If we're the ones that either shy away from it, people are going to get hurt. And there's a giant responsibility on our shoulders to make sure we don't do that.
Great, thank you for mentioning that. And we're gonna pivot to questions from the audience in a moment. But I just, in listening to all of you speak, I want to ask you to talk about really the composition of Long Island. From red to very blue. I mean, last weekend there was this Trucks for Trumps parade from west all the way out to Montauk. But in your district, and I hear the three assembly districts all seem to be gerrymandered to be extremely red, because you have representatives there who are very conservative and fully supporting Trump. Have you found in your campaigning that there is a large enough block of either voters like Dylan has described as people who have been turned off, but maybe now will turn on this time, or people who are in the middle and that you are reaching them with your particular message? Does that make sense? And if so, please tell me what you feel. Is Long Island that red, or is that really shifting?
Well, anyone else want to go first?
Go for it, Joe.
I'm going to take the last second before I jump.
Do you want to go?
Yeah. I know. I'm holding on for the last minute. So, and I'm going to say, getting into office means that you have the ability to, and this is a critical election because we're in a redistricting year. And when you're in office during redistricting year, you have say over what the lines are going to look like. So who is in the seat when the lines are drawn are going to be really important. Free and fair lines are a thing, but we certainly want to have our representatives representing, the values that we believe in, right? I mean, let's be honest about that. And I think, loud and noisy signs certainly are not indicative of what I think most people care about, which is, you know, the healthcare that they rely on, their public schools, the environment, clean air, clean water, the things that we all really agree on. We agree on so much. We are so divided, but I think when you get under the labels and you can talk the way we have been able to talk about the issues, you can find common ground. And when you can find common ground, you can move people into your, into your column and convince them, that you're the one that's going to fight for them when you get there, that they're going to have a representative that cares about them and listens to them. So this is a critical election on lots of fronts. It isn't just the issues, but it is the redistricting. And when we get there, it's going to matter. So good night to everyone. Thank you so much. We hope to see you on the other side with a big celebration when we get to exhale a little bit before all the really big work starts. I know it will not happen instantly. It will be a big fight. I mean, it will be a big fight, but it is a fight that matters, and it'll fight that will produce some really, really good results. Hope to see you all soon. Hope you're safe. Hope you're well. Hope you're all doing the best that you can. Stay strong.
Thank you. Thanks, Christina. And good luck tonight in that debate.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Now, Joe, you were about to share.
Yeah, so I think that Long Island has been moving further to the left. We just, the people that have been moving here for the last 30 years, when I go out and talk with a lot of constituents, not that I'm knocking on doors, but you have calls through groups, etc., contacts with different organizations, a lot of them espouse the same ideals that they Christine mentioned, healthcare, water. So, some stuff is just not partisan. Water quality is not partisan, so racism, they partisanize it, but it's an issue here on Long Island, and many people realize it, and we're working, to fix these issues. These are big issues too. So it's happening. I think what you're seeing is sort of like the death rattles, hopefully, of a mentality which is, the Trump mentality, to put it in that category of just privilege, white supremacy, sort of fascist mentality, authoritarian police state mentality that we realize does not work. The majority of us realize this is not the direction we want to go, but they're really loud. And so I don't think they are the majority. And the majority we see the majority don't vote. That's what it is. Most people are feeling left out, or that it doesn't matter that if they vote or not. And why they really care about their families, their health, their security, those are the things they care about. They're not being addressed. So reaching out to them, the person who usually doesn't vote or doesn't usually get contacted. And that's what my campaign has been doing. We've concentrated on voters that don't usually get contacted. Those are the unaffiliated, because they go either way. And when you have conversations with them, whether it's on the phone, etc., they're just like, wow, you care. That makes them care. And so they want to get involved. And I was on a podcast over the weekend, and this question came up: how do you get people involved? I said, well, people will get involved with the things that they care about, that they love, the issue. And then once they get involved with that issue, whether it's healthcare, whether it's dealing with police brutality, or schools, whatever it is, the PTA, once they start to get involved, they really get involved. They see how things work, and they realize, wow, this needs to change. And they decide to do more, to take the next step. And as a legislator, I think it's part of our duty to foster that, to get people involved. And a campaign hopefully does it, because all the people in my campaign are volunteers. I can't believe how involved they are. But this means that we're returning back to a society that takes civics seriously. Say that 3 times fast.
That's great. I like that. I think you're absolutely accurate. You know, you meet people where they are, where their passion is, and when they engage with that, then they see the interconnectivity of other things. Steve or Dylan, I just don't want to leave you out of the conversation regarding the composition of Long Island and what you've discovered in your districts. Would either of you like to, take a few moments to describe that?
Yeah, so my district is probably a little bit different. So it is slightly more Democrats than Republicans. If you look at though people that lean red, then there's slightly more people that lean red. But 5 out of the 6 last presidential elections, my district has voted a Democrat in to win. So Long Island has a long history of segregation, and that is still seen today. I mean, there was just a Newsday article about people of color being a lot more likely of being pulled over by the police, being searched, and many other things. So my opponent does not believe that there is any racism. It's crazy. So we definitely still have it here today. But what I would say is that we have been reaching out to a lot of people, just talking to people. I was talking to a Republican business owner, has a landscaping business that lives a couple blocks away from me, and he saw me. I said who I was, and then he got angry at first, and then I ended up talking to him for 15 minutes, and then he was like, okay, sure, yeah, I'll vote for you, because I listened to his concerns. I heard him. He was concerned that healthcare isn't affordable, that people aren't interested in helping small businesses, that we keep electing super wealthy people that are not connected to the neighborhood. And so I told them about my history, my past, what I want to do. And I think that's what we have to do over and over and over again. We have to talk to people. We have to let them know that we care, that we listen, and that we understand their concerns. And so we have just been doing that for thousands and thousands of people. So I'm excited for election time to come and pass. But I think we're going to do well. Because our district is pretty good for our messaging.
Great, thank you, Steve. Dylan?
Yeah, and I don't know if the other gentleman agreed. Do you want to just keep that order, make it simple? I don't know. I don't mind if that works.
Well, some other questions may come in specifically for someone, but if you wanted to address the issue of the Long Island composition, please.
Yeah, it's like Steve just said too. It ties into segregation, and even though New York didn't have Jim Crow laws in the books, at least in the most cases, we're still seeing a perpetuation of the same systems that keep towns segregated. Long Island is actually one of the most segregated parts of the country. And I remember when I first learned about that growing up, I was like, I thought, we're kind of raised to think this is a Southern issue, right? The South was where the civil rights marches happened. The South is where all this racism existed. It permeates our society, and it's still there. And my opponent too kind of makes it seem like this is like a person-to-person issue. He said, I treat the people the way I want to be treated, and even reference like, this idea of, color blindness, not focusing on this. And I said, we can't do that, because guess what? A black person on trial isn't going to be able to go, well, just don't see me for my color, when the system purposely sees them for what they are and puts them away for longer. So injustice and that type of mentality is ingrained, especially on Long Island. And to me, I think the success we find in breaking out of that mentality and honestly lifting that veil, because a lot of the reason working class people, even though it might seem insane to us, like how are working class people supporting the folks that are putting up oligarchs and the ultra wealthy and are backing bankers and all this stuff? How are they convincing working class people to vote for them? It's propaganda, it's lies, it's constant gaslighting that has really, really worked fantastically for them. But I think finally we're starting to lift that veil, and we're starting to get in contact with these folks. And how do we do it? It's by talking directly to them It's by going, these are our issues. These are issues that affect all of us. You have more in common with a person in a town next to you than you're ever going to have with Jeff Bezos or Donald Trump. Those are the people that we're all on the same level. We've been kind of taught to fight each other going horizontally when we need to be looking up vertically at the folks who really try to divide us, who try to segment us, who try to keep us separated and break apart the real power within the United States, which is middle class and working folks, the ones who need help the most and the ones who have been left behind the most. And getting through that and getting that message across, especially on Long Island, people who really do pride themselves on being working class and middle class and having that mentality is key. I don't care how I said this. I don't care if there were 1 million registered Republicans in my district and 1 Democrat. I would still run on these issues. I would still run on these topics because they do appeal to everybody. We just need to get through that nonsense that's been put in that really does make it a football game, red versus blue. I'm a Republican. I vote Republican because I was told to be a Republican, and yeah, that's it. End of story. We need to make sure we're informing voters. We need to make sure we're talking to everyone. We can't just get a strong base like Trump. I mean, Trump's base is continuing to shrink, but that's that mentality. I'm only catering to them, and I'll gaslight the rest of them. We need to break through all this nonsense and make them realize and make everybody realize that these issues are for all of us. These issues are propelling all of us forward. And I think that's how we can shift what seems to be purple/red districts into blue districts.
Great. Okay, great. Thank you, Dylan. And I just want to also let everyone on the in the conversation understand that Dylan is looking up because he's looking at his monitor, and just that's not he's not looking over a shoulder there.
I'm not doing anything exciting, I promise. I'm on the call. I'm here with you. I don't have like a Minesweeper or something on my computer.
Well, but thank you all. I mean, what I'll say, and just to underscore the point that was threaded through a lot of your responses, is that the Republicans have done a great job of, kind of usurping the sort of the working class voter, and by gaslighting that voter. But there is that underlying racism that is very much a part of our American heritage, and that's and I'm glad to hear a number of you speak directly to the fact that we need to take that on directly and work towards correcting, our white supremacist society. So at this point, I want to turn it over to Julie Sheehan, who is going to moderate questions that have come into the chat and via raised hands for people who want to ask you questions. So Julie, please take it away.
Yes, we have an excellent question from Jerry. She has a question that hasn't come up at all about New York State's budget and revenues. And just as a heads up, right after her, I'm going to call on Bob Buonaspina. Jerry, do you want to, Maslanka, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Oh, thank you. Okay. Yeah, I just know we're going to have a terrible budget shortfall. And each of you, just what are your thoughts? It's about, I think I've heard about 14 different proposals about raising revenue for New York State to make up for the shortfall. So I'm wondering what your priorities would be and what your thoughts if you studied these programs or these initiatives and what you think about them.
Go first again. Almost probably, I might steal the answers from everyone else. I mean, and that ironically happened during my Newsday endorsement interview with Montesano. He was in favor of the peer-to-peer tax and taxing the billionaires. I was like, wow, I can't believe it. But I think that was a sign that my campaign's putting pressure on him, because it polls great. In New York, the majority of people want to see that happen. So for anyone who's not familiar with the term budget justice, it's a whole bunch of bills which would tax the billionaires. We've got 160 some odd of them. They are here. They're making lots and lots and lots of money during this pandemic. And if we were just to raise their income tax, we'd be bringing in billions of dollars. On top of that, a peer-to-peer tax is second, third, and fourth luxury homes in New York City. The stock buyback tax on that, the transfer tax on stocks, vacancy tax. So, basically real estate buys a building, lets it sit there, nothing gets developed. The community is losing out on tax revenue. Well, we put a vacancy tax on it. It would, either they pay it or they develop it. Either way, we'll see revenue coming in. There are other taxes there too, but those are short-term situations. You can't sunset them, of course. We want to make sure that revenue continues to come in. But I think another thing we need to put into this is look at a long-term solution, and that is a public bank, so a state bank. Bringing a state bank, establishing that for New York. North Dakota's had one for 100 years. This isn't a new idea. There are state banks throughout the world. A state bank is the banker's bank. It is a bank which works for the good of the people and not for profit and the shareholders. So one of the first things that we could do with a state bank is, Steve brought this up before, small businesses, very important. So they would allow for investment into small businesses with low interest loans. It would then help create, and that would be subsidizing those loans through community banks and credit unions, who would then provide those loans to the small businesses and local economy, strengthening it. The revenue that comes in from that would go back into the general fund, or it could go somewhere else, but it's a surplus. So in time, we build a surplus, which we can use to reinvest into the community. That could pay for schools, that could pay for other programs. And we could also then start to see a decrease in our own taxes because we are making the revenue through the state bank. One of the other things is right now, the billions of tax dollars that go up to Albany go through Wall Street for processing. If we had a state bank, we wouldn't have to do that. We'd be saving millions upon millions of dollars in fees because we're processing our own tax dollars. We're not giving it to a private bank to do. And in a case like with COVID-19 and pandemic, a state bank has the capacity to take a loan from the Fed at almost 0% interest, 0.025%. So we would not have had to wait for Congress. We wouldn't have to have Trump hold it over our heads, elect me and you'll get your money. It would have been like, we're going to go to the Fed, we're going to borrow the money, we need to do this, and we would have the money that we needed to cover that. So for the future, I think a state bank established here in New York will work very well, and it could be a municipal bank, so the county could have the bank, New York City could have a bank, or overall the state of New York could have it, or you can have multiple in this case. So that's what I would be supportive of.
Okay, thanks. Steve or Dylan?
I'm supportive of Buffett type rule in New York State. I would look to ways to increase revenue in other ways. While I'm pretty conservative in my own life, where I've never smoked a cigarette or done any illegal drugs, I'm pro legalization of marijuana. When we look at the statistics, the stats for teens, actually usage goes down when states legalize marijuana. And that is a huge revenue boost for New York State. The other thing I would say is that we have to be arm in arm with our Congress people and to be fighting for New York. New York is a giver state. Our residents give around $2,000 more to the federal government than we receive. And it's time for New York to get some help. I mean, that's just the truth of it. Where red states, when they have natural disasters, they get help from the federal government. It's our time to get some help from the federal government, because all of these cuts that we're doing to education, to transportation, we're cutting things for people that need them the most. And I hope that the federal government will come through. So it's definitely tough. We have to look at options if the federal government doesn't come through, but that definitely needs to be option A.
And we're talking about revenue right now, and this budget crisis existed before COVID. COVID just exacerbated the issues, and it's really brought to the attention of a lot of this should have been done beforehand. A lot of this should have been done before COVID, because we wouldn't have been in such a bad spot as we are now. a lot of the proposals, including increasing taxes on the ultra wealthy and accumulated wealth, are not radical new ideas. They existed in a time where they were needed, especially during the Great Depression. Like, none of these policies are exactly revolutionary. They're just kind of common sense. And my opponent was, you know, that classic conservative talking point that the rich are going to flee in droves when we tax them at the appropriate rate. No, the people that are fleeing in droves right now are people like me who can afford to live in New York State because the burden of revenue is placed on us, and we can't contribute to the economy when we don't have any money. So what we need to do is we need to shift the burden of taxes away from middle class and working families, make sure they pay, again, their fair share. We're not punishing them for being rich. We're just making sure they pay what they owe, making sure they pay what's fair for everyone while we're handling it all right now. And we also need to invest in the middle class. And this is going to tie into it. I'm sure we're going to talk about it, the Green New Deal in New York State. Investing in infrastructure, investing in green energy research, development, and manufacturing is going to bring thousands of high-paying jobs to New York State. What that's going to do is going to build up the middle class. It's going to get folks like me into work and a lot of money in my pocket. And we're going to be the ones who actually spend it. The ultra wealthy don't spend it. Why? That's how they got to be ultra wealthy. They kept all their money. They hoard it. It's like a dragon on top of a pile of gold type stuff we're talking here. None of that money goes back into the economy. That goes into their inheritance. We need to make sure the folks who actually fuel the economy are built up to do so. That's how you handle the budget, not austerity, not tighten the belts and punishing people who were already hurting before COVID happened by cutting services like that. To me, it's insanity. It's insane that we're still talking about this type of common sense fiscal policy in 2020, but that's the effect of when, you know, conservatives take on the mantle of self-responsibility, fiscal responsibility. They are the ones that are making sure that New York is socialist for the wealthy. They get everything in the state. They get everything provided to them. They get all the subsidies. Everything goes to them. None of it goes to the middle class. We need a bailout, not the banks. We need a bailout, not the wealthy. We need to make sure the folks who actually build up this economy are given the tools to do so.
Awesome. Sign me up. All right. Our next question comes from Bob Bonaspira. You want to unmute yourself, and let's do like reverse order. So Dylan, maybe you can take a first crack at it, and Steve, you'll be stuck in the middle again, and then Joe.
So I want you all three to convince me that you truly want to see the New York Health Act passed, and you're going to go to Albany as activists, pushing your colleagues really hard on this. And I have a follow-up question after that.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, perfect. So I'm going first. Talk about the New York Health Act. Again, this is another example of something that's common sense. It's just a matter of making sure voters know it. The fact that we, the United States, the self-purported greatest country in the world, still have healthcare that prioritizes profit over basic human decency and the social contract in which the government provides the welfare to the people, which includes healthcare, is embarrassing. We know the system works. We have proof that it works. There are no complaints about it. I made a joke in my debate. I said, you bring a receipt for an ambulance ride into England and they'll laugh you out of the pub. You have to pay to go to the hospital to survive. That's insanity. We're basically privatizing, denying people the right to exist. Private healthcare and private industries' involvement in the healthcare industry is the most outrageous, backwards, barbaric thing I can even think of right now that still exists in the modern world. New York has the opportunity to show the rest of the union how to do it. We have the option to pass the New York Health Act because we know the federal government is going to kick the can. They're going to kick the can. We need to make sure we can show, hey, we did it here, but we shouldn't be the ones that have to do this. There should be a federal responsibility, but until they get the job done, New York has to take it upon ourselves to do it. It's not only a moral issue, but it's an economically smart issue because, again, this ties back into the middle class having that money in their pocket. Right now, if Obamacare goes out of the way, woof, I'm in trouble with insurance right now. I can't afford to get basic health care. I can't afford to go to the hospital if something happens. So we got two problems here. One, I can't afford it if anything happens and it might bankrupt me. And two, if I get sick, I'm more likely to get sick again and again and again because guess what? I can't go out of work and actually get the stuff done because I'm broke. So it's only going to get worse and worse and worse unless we directly address it. It's not something you can kind of approach from the side. It's a direct head-on approach of there can be no more debate. It's going to save the state an estimated $10 billion, a conservative estimate of $10 billion. This is common sense fiscal conservative policy, if we want to go that way. Needs to be done. No qualms about it. The Senate really needs to grow up and get this done.
Excellent. Steve?
So part of my campaign is not only to make sure that I win, but it is to make sure that other Democrats that are progressive win too. So I have my campaign and myself. We have been very supportive of a lot of other Democrats that are running because I'm a realist, where I understand the way the system works. Is that even if there's a majority in the assembly that wants to get the New York Health Act completed, it won't get passed if we don't have the support of the state Senate, and even the federal government has to allow us to get that through. They have to okay it. So we need a lot of support from Democrats. And so I have been working extremely hard to support many other Democrats, not just myself, get elected, because that's how we improve healthcare, and that's how the New York Health Act gets approved, by electing Democrats. And so it's going to be hard, but that's why we need every single person to get out and vote, because and down ballot and up ballot, because it all will affect the healthcare of New York. So that's what I've been doing. And so I'm continuing to fight for that and help other campaigns.
So just out of curiosity, which Senate candidates are you supporting besides, of course, Christine?
Monica Martinez has endorsed me. We have done phone banks with her. I was on a call with Laura Ahern and Steve Englebright. So we've worked with her. So her district overlaps with ours too. Nancy Goroff,
I'm sorry to overtalk you, Steve, but both Monica and Laura Ahern do not support the New York Health Act.
Yeah, so I understand that obviously people have different opinions than I do, but I know the way the system works is that we need more Democrats in the state Senate, or it's impossible for it to get passed. I think that it's very clear that we need we need a majority, more than a majority, in the New York state Senate to get the New York Health Act elected. So I think it's a fight on many different fronts, and as we have more Democrats, more people are more free to support more democratic ideas.
Okay, Joe.
Well, first, Bob, I'm insulted that you'd ask me. You should know where I stand. But both Steve and Dylan made some great points. And matter of fact, I had a conversation with the treasurer of Albany, the city of Albany. He's a proponent for the New York Health Act the other day. And in the fiscal responsibility of passing the New York Health Act is something that we need to bring up more often, because it would save us, as Dylan said, billions, and every household at least 5,000. So just from a fiscal standpoint, this is the right direction. From a moral standpoint, this is the only direction that we should be going, because as a Long Island activist member, steering committee member, we've known people who have not sought medical attention when they should have because of not having the money to go to the doctor, or making a choice between that and something for their family, and they die. So no one in the, as we always say, the richest country in the world should be dying because they don't have the access to health care. That is a travesty, and we shouldn't let that continue. To Steve's point about Democrats, my district shares 3 Democrat senators: Jim Gordon, Anna Kaplan, and Kevin Thomas. Kevin Thomas is the only co-sponsor of the New York Health Act, and it's because of Long Island activists and other groups who canvassed last time around to push for it that he knew that's one of the reasons why he won, because Kemp Hannon was holding it up in the committee, and there was a lot of action in his district, and people were told this guy is why we can't have good things. And he got voted out. Now, Senator Gorn and Kaplan are going to need some pressure from the Assembly. And as I would be sharing the district with them, and like I brought up before, as I educate the constituents the need for the New York Health Act, what it is, because a lot of people don't know what it is, they're going to request that, that we have this. So I think that's, and having a Republican take the Anna Kaplan or Jim Gordon or Kevin Thomas's place is going to make our job a lot harder, even if they don't agree with us right now. But it makes my job easier to deal with Democrats who are more likely to support this. They'll just need the right push in that direction. So, and yes, Bob, I am a champion for the New York Health Act. I pledged it. I signed the pledge. It'll be something that we'll be fighting for in Albany come January. So, and even before that, we'll start fighting for it before that.
I know you're a champion. It was a softball one for you, Joe. You got me thinking, though. My follow-up question has to deal with, people are saying, well, there's such a big budget shortfall right now in the state.
Bob, I'm so sorry.
Oh,
I think we got a couple of other people who want to ask questions. So
I'm going to give you an all then. Big all.
I'll
put my follow-up in the chat, all right?
Oh, awesome. Great idea.
All right. Bye.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Francesca has a question about Green New Deal. So why don't you go?
Okay. Hello, everybody. I just want to say I'm so impressed by all 4 of the candidates here. I was feeling kind of tapped out on money, but I'm going to contribute to all your campaigns. It's an honor to have you running on our behalf. So my question is about the Green New Deal. Actually, New York Renews and other local groups, the Long Islanders for Climate Action, which I'm a member of, have been talking about a green recovery, that linking the recovery from COVID to the Green New Deal. We have the New York Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, and it's going to come down to issues of climate justice, money for 2 things: money to really support communities of color and frontline communities, which is supposed to be in the act, but it's a lot of time hard to get the kind of funding that is really needed for that. And also, I have to say, money for municipalities to be able to make the transition. It's not just on a state level. Town governments need to have the kind of funding support so that they can act on climate action plans and do the stuff on the ground to make sure that a municipality is completely united with all its departments, coordinated to further the transition to a clean energy economy. So I just want to get your reaction. What are your thoughts on this?
And, we got to let Steve go, not be in the middle once. So let's do Steve first, then Dylan, then Joe. How about that?
Okay, there's a lot in there. So I could spend a long time with this question, but I'll try to be quick. The way I see things with climate change is I see this challenge as an opportunity for not only Long Island, but all of New York, where we can invest in New York and invest in green jobs, and we can bring back manufacturing jobs here on Long Island, building wind turbines, having more solar panels. We can have better tech jobs for graduates here on Long Island. We have some of the best high schools, some of the best colleges, but like Dylan was saying, this area is not affordable for younger people. And so we have a brain drain away from Long Island. And we really, really have to change that. We need affordable housing. So the people, the younger people that we're investing in, that we've spent so much money on to educate them. And they're New Yorkers. They are the hardest working smartest people in all of America, and we're losing those people. So we need those people here in Long Island to solve the issues that we have here. So I see it as an opportunity. I think we can have a lot of new green tech, renewable energy, and rebuild the economy. So it works for everyone, giving great jobs for people here on Long Island.
All right. So yeah, there's two aspects to this, and I guess as I'll frame it with my answers, that there's a reality of climate change and environmental change, and that it's something that's unavoidable. We're already in a dangerous spot. We're basically playing catch up. We're not ahead of the game right now. We're not really where we need to be at all. We're playing catch up. So that's something that frames everything else. I said it earlier when I was first talking, that climate change is that all-encompassing issue that is there. It's coming, and it's coming really fast to be in front of us to a point where we're going to be in a dangerous spot. That's the first thing. The second thing is how we're actually going to address it and the opportunity that it presents itself as. It's unfortunate that we have to deal with it, but we need to work with what we were given. To me, climate change is this generation's World War II. It's not going to be as easy as, going to Berlin and then it's over, but it does provide us this opportunity to focus all energy on it, to provide the same boost that the war did, and to get all these opportunities and this is going to sound selfish. I mean, I'm running for New York State Assembly. I want these jobs in New York. I want these opportunities in New York, and I want this development in New York. We need to invest in the infrastructure. We need to invest in green energy research, development, and manufacturing. And we need to make sure we're taking advantage of all the resources we have currently in New York and make more people want to come here. I was part of the SUNY system. SUNY system is the largest state employer in New York State. There are so many folks going to that school, that entire school system right now, that are meant to take this challenge up, that we need to keep here. We need to provide them the opportunities to do so. And going back into climate justice, specifically with communities that are harmed disproportionately with it, I think we need to make sure that these jobs are provided to them as well directly. And I'm going back, I'm stealing from a certain guy who used to be the governor of New York, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Before he became the president, he tried out a lot of the New Deal ideas in New York State as the governor. And one of the most popular ones that was the most well-received by the entire country was the Civilian Conservation Corps. What it did was it took 18 to 25-year-old men, got them a job, put them in basically camps that were built by the Army across the state, across the country, and had them go to work on conservation efforts. That's a direct pipeline for work for folks who need it the most, and a safe pipeline and a safe job for folks who need it the most. We need to revitalize that type of mentality, because this is an opportunity to get us out of the hole that COVID put us into. And it's also something we literally cannot avoid. This is the type of effort that requires every single amount of effort and attention focused on it. And the best part about it is it's an investment, and it's going to pay back tenfold. If New York State is the home of green energy research, development, and manufacturing, the wealth that we have right now is going to look like peanuts compared to the future, and it's going to be in the hands of working people. It's not going to the top. It's staying with the middle class and working people. California is going to get jealous about us when this happens, and I think we really need to make it happen. No, if anybody from outside of New York State's watching, I apologize, but I'm running for New York State Assembly. I have to I have to trade a few barbs.
Joe?
I hate following Dylan. He's always got great perspective on things. I wish he was my assemblyman. So yes, first of all, the CLCPA is underfunded. It's only received $1 billion. That sounds like only $1 billion, but that's 1% of our budget, less than 1% of our budget. And so we do need more investment into the CLCPA, which is basically New York's Green New Deal. And investment in low carbon industries or jobs isn't just windmills and solar panels, et cetera. That's teachers, that's construction work, that's healthcare, it's education. So how we decide to invest and build this new economy isn't just in one direction, it's widespread. Many people don't realize that. We're looking into investing into not just the wind farm that we want to build off of Long Island, but, as Dylan said, and as Steve said, into people, into the middle class, and making sure that that investment is going to return back to the state so we can reinvest. So, trying to follow these guys, they've said everything. So I think, you know, if we're going to do this, we have to have the political will to do it. And we have to have people that are willing to step up and make sure that we do this. And we're not seeing, even in some, you know, some Democrats don't think it's the way to go. So we're going to have to put the pressure up in Albany to fund the CLCPA with more than $1 billion. Because if we're going to get anywhere close to the zero carbon emissions that we want by, I think it's 2030, if there was a 2050, we're going to have to do more. And if we're going to really do what we said and help communities of color, that means it's more than just saying it. We will have to make sure those investments go there. And that's part of something that we should be doing anyway, not just because of climate, because communities of color, because of redlining on Long Island, have been, you know, suffered inequality, whether it's with schooling or opportunity or just whatever services that they don't usually have, because we're not investing in those communities. So it's not for, you know, a green economy. It's also a social justice issue. So keeping that in mind. So as we move forward, and I brought this up at the public bank, that's one of the ways to move this forward, is to have that source of revenue that will be building up within a public bank that we can be reinvesting into our communities through this. So, and if we're providing the low interest loans, we can make sure that those loans that are going out are for this purpose. So the state bank could make those requirements that, well, if it's going to help, it's going to help in this way. So I think that's one of the ways we can move forward with that. And I'm 100% for it. So.
Awesome. So we have, I think, time for one last question. If you guys do it as kind of a lightning round, from Eileen Duffy, who has had her hand patiently up. So let's keep our responses to like a minute or less. And what should our order be? Joe, have you gone first?
Many times.
Oh, you've gone first many times. All right, so let's do Steve first, Joe second, Dylan third. How about that? Eileen.
Oh, you want me to ask it? Okay. The Long Island Progressive Coalition had put out a document in the middle of the summer about reimagining Long Island, and one of the major parts that was of interest to me, because I'm on the board of Slow Food East End, was the indigenous population, their food security, and then also that how composting could be a really great part of any kind of Green New Deal, and getting rid of garbage on Long Island is a really hard thing to do. And it could also be, you know, it's a commodity, you know, that could be used to farmers or something like that. Love to hear if you guys have had any, have opinions about that. Love to hear even more, that if you're not ready, then you're willing to learn. So go ahead. What do you got? Doggies, shut up.
Steve, you're first.
So the question is, working with Native population, I didn't fully understand.
I think she was talking about the connections between food security, for example, with Native populations, sustainability in agriculture, and the sort of great cycle of life with composting.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So there's a lot of issues. I have a good relationship with Shinnecock Nation. I've donated over, I think $500 worth of masks to them when the pandemic first started. They definitely need our support. When I've talked to them, usually their main thing really is not even support from New York State, but a lot of times it's have New York State get out of their way, not to sue them for things that they're trying to do on their own land, and not to be harassed. So I've definitely reached out to them. I've listened to them. and so that's been helpful for composting and landfill. The landfill is definitely probably my biggest issue. Right after this, I have a meeting I have to jump onto for the landfill that I'm late for. So we really need to do every possible thing we can do. Composting. We really, if we can split our garbage, we can compost probably about 50% of it, and instead of just throwing it in the landfill. So we can cut the amount of landfill. Burning everything is not smart. It pollutes the air. It leaks into the water. We need a new path forward, and they're trying to do it all over again. They're trying to build another one that will, again, not only poison the residents of Brookhaven, but we, the residents of Brookhaven, will have to pay those fines, like the $250,000 fine from the Justice Department and EPA. So that's one of my biggest issues, and yeah, so I'm going to be fighting for that just as soon as I leave.
Great. All right. Joe, you're up next.
So just to mention this, earlier in the year when LIPC, Cooperation Long Island, I sat on the policy board with them, and when we got, matter of fact, there was a few individuals from the representative Shinnecock that was part of that, and the food insecurity that was there, they were suffering greatly because of the pandemic. They already suffered before that, but with the pandemic, they just found a shortage of everything, from diapers to hygienic needs and to food. I learned a lot. I probably need to learn more about their needs, and that one of the first things is that to recognize, well, this is their land. We're on their land, and that we should be looking to them about what their needs are, not deciding what their needs are. So I would want to have conversations with them about what it is they want, and not deciding that this is what they should have. Even with good intention, that if we wanted to do that. With composting, I think with Long Island, that's a great idea. That I think we could be doing that. I know in my own district, there's a facility in Bethpage, which we could be using for composting. And I've had one or two environmental lawyers I've talked with, and we could we should be establishing that. The town of Oyster Bay is never forward thinking when it comes to these things. So I think that is something that we should be doing. And like Steve said, it would be less landfill. And with that, we could be we could be promoting more agriculture on Long Island. That growing more food locally. Things I've talked with the DSA about when I'm on the mutual aid with them is that if we had more, we can say, victory gardens during the pandemic, that would be fresh produce that people could be donating to mutual aid efforts and to food banks, because you can only eat so much tuna and canned food. And so fresh produce that we could be bringing to families in a sense where people could be donating, because no one's going to eat 30 tomatoes that come in off the vine at the same time. So unless you're making sauce, right? So there's opportunity there, I think, to get people locally, active. Dylan had brought up before, in a way, like a conservation that FDR had, had established. Well, we just get people to start doing this locally. We promote those ideas, and then speak with the Shinnecock and the Montaukett, because they're looking to be recognized, and see what their needs are and how we can help each other. So.
Great. Yeah. Dylan.
For me, it's like such one of those issues, again, that kind of makes you rack your head. Like, it's 2020 and there's still this disconnect between the state of New York and the people of New York and the indigenous folks who've lived here before we did. And the reason issues like this are so still prevalent is because there's still this lack of respect on the base level of understanding sovereignty, of understanding just from a human standpoint of the damage done has not been repaired at all. It has never been made whole. It has never been made square. There has never been an actual effort to get us on the same playing field. So just for the context of this, but it does tie into, I know we were talking about specifically sustainability and composting and how that can take into effect with Indigenous communities. This type of work has to be all inclusive. I said that in my chat answer to Rob. The work and development has to all be done at the same time and has to uplift everyone. That includes Indigenous peoples in New York and all the tribes that are recognized across the state. I'm sure none of us would be shocked. I mean, you could pull a random person off the street and you can ask them how many reservations there. Do you even know there's a reservation on Long Island? I bet a lot of people don't know, because it is something that we put to the side, that we pretend doesn't exist because either it's too difficult to talk about or we would much rather live in a sort of ignorance with it. But groups like this that actually bring this to the forefront, it's pivotal because it is necessary if we're going to have this just New York, that it includes all New Yorkers and Indigenous people that still live here. And we need to make sure any investments done in these communities include them. We need to make sure we're working with them directly. We can't just leave them on their own and go, well, you're on your own. You want that, right? We're not going to give any assistance. That's insanity. We need to make sure we're listening to them directly. We're getting them what they need, and we're building them up alongside everyone else. It can't be seen as a separate issue. They are very much central to all these issues. They're emblematic of these issues. And it's something you can't ignore. And it pains me, just the amount of ignorance that still exists amongst Long Islanders and New Yorkers in regard to this specific topic and the work that still needs to be done. I always say I referenced the year, it's 2020 and we're still talking about this. It should have been handled years and years and years ago. But for some reason, we're still at this table talking about it. But yeah.
Okay, Catherine, you want to bring us on home? We have taken so much of you guys' time, but you've been awesome to give it to us.
Yes, absolutely. I echo what Julie said. I want to close by first asking you, the candidates, or someone from your campaign to once again drop into the chat the links so that we can both contribute and volunteer for your campaign. I want that to be front and center as folks exit. I'll leave the chat open for a few moments so people can block copy that and help you. Really impressed with all of your thoughtfulness, your research of the topics. I put into the chat the link to Cooperation Long Island and Reimagine Long Island because it's a well thought through document about how we need to, let the people with the wisdom, ancient wisdom, actually lead us forward. And that to a large extent are the native populations that live here and just allow them to help us fix the damage that we have done to this beautiful Long Island. It's shocking that there are food deserts in a landscape that has soils that are the best in the world to grow food, and instead we're growing McMansions. However, I'll kind of stop right there. Otherwise, I could roll on for another hour or so about how we need to reprioritize how we are with ourselves and with our community. But what we all need to do right now is help these wonderful candidates get up to Albany. You will represent Long Island so well. We thank you so much to Joe Sackman, to Dylan Rice, and to Steve Polgar, and of course to Christine Pellegrino, who had to leave to go to a debate. Keep us posted on Peer's Facebook page about how we can help you, of course, going forward. I'd like to now just mention two things. Number one is Peer is going to host a Protect the Results rally in Bridgehampton on the day after the election, if indeed there is any contention over the results. So if you go to, I'll drop into the chat also the link where you can sign up for that. And I think there hopefully will be other Protect the Results rallies around Long Island. And finally, our next meeting is going to be on November 17, our post-election forward meeting where we discuss what we will do to go forward after all of you are in office and we can work with you to pass the New York Health Act and all the other justice legislation that's necessary. So let's unmute ourselves and give a nice applause to our candidates here and send them out with that wonderful energy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Great.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Good luck.
You guys were great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Quick shout out to John, if he's still on. Brookhaven Young Dems is having a food drive for I think it's Thanksgiving. So, John, if there's a link to it, drop it in the chat, or you might have already done it.
He already
Sure.
did.
You already
Yeah.
did? Okay.
Yeah.
If he wants to do that again, that's fine. That would be that's a great effort. That's a great effort. Yeah, this was fantastic. So we really wish you well in the last 2 weeks. We will be posting this. If it may not have gone directly to Facebook, but if it didn't, we've recorded it. It's going to be posted on Pier's page, and you can grab the link if you want to share it, if that helps you.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You,
Take care,
Good night,
everyone.
everyone.
Thank you. That was great.
Good night.
Good night. Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
And I'm going to leave it open if you guys want to copy everything that's in the chat. So don't leave before you do that.
You can just to let everybody know. You see, if you look under the chat, there's that little box with the three dots. You click on that. That says Save Chat. It'll download the chat for you.
That's true. Everybody can download if they would like.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a big phone bank for Mr. Sackman here tomorrow, which he might have mentioned.
It's
hosted by Working Families Party, Our Revolution, NIPAN, and a host of other groups. So.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be big. It will be the best push I think we can do right before early voting starts, and getting that out. This is a very close race. I hate to take like anyone else's time up, but it's a close race, and he's feeling it. I had a mailer put out. Oh, that was ridiculous. They talk about the Green New Deal. They took the Green New Deal and twisted it and said I'm an extremist.
That's what they do. That's what they do.
Yeah, I felt honored. I said, oh, they're paying attention at least.
Well, I think that what Dylan said several times about common sense is I think the thing we need to keep driving home when we're talking about our humane and rational policies that we're advocating for.
Yeah.
And I think people are going to begin to see it. You know, people are desperate and they need solutions. And the other side is not providing solutions.
They're not.
Yeah.
They're not.
No, I think that's perfect, Catherine. I mean, common sense and humanity. I mean, you know, that's what we need to push forward in everything that you do.
Common sense solutions that work for everyone.
Right.
Great.
All right. We've got the argument on our side. We just need, somebody needs like $50 billion to get a media channel, but, next week.
Okay.
All right. Thanks again, everyone. I appreciate this. Have a good night.
Thank you, Joe.
I'm sure.
Thank you, Catherine and Julie.
Yes,
Great
thank you, Julie.
I think Julie's gone.
Oh, she did leave. Okay.
Thanks, Catherine. It went very well, really well.
Catherine,
Really well. It was terrific.
Really was.
Very impressive. I wish every conversation with candidates